Hello everyone and welcome to the Three Amigos, where we explore captivating moments in history. We are Tyra, Glennis, and Piiya, and today we will be diving into the story of Berlin Blockade and Airlift.
Today we are going to explore the Berlin Blockade and Airlift of 1948-49. A crucial moment in history that changed the course of Germany, airlifting food and fuel to Berlin from Allied air bases in Western Germany. The Berlin Blockade cut off all land and river transit between West Berlin and West Germany. Germany was established, followed by the creation of East Germany. The occupying powers in East and West Germany replaced their military governors with civilian leaders.
The Soviets and the authorities of East Germany, General Secretary Walter Ulrich, decided to transform East Germany into a Soviet satellite state. What led to Soviet forces blockading the railroad and water access to Allied-controlled areas of Berlin? And how did it impact the world? As we understand the Berlin Blockade and Airlift, we first need to go back to June 24, 1948 to 1949. At this time, Soviet forces blockaded railway and canal access to the western zone of Berlin.
The civilians had no access to food, medicine, fuel, electricity, and other basic goods. At the end of World War II, the United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union divided and defeated Germany into 4 occupation zones. In June 1948, the Soviet Union began the blockade of Berlin because their territory fully surrounded the capital, cut off all ground traffic in and out of West Berlin, and attempt to force their allies to abandon the city.
The Berlin Blockade took place in 1948 by the Soviet Union to limit the ability of France, Great Britain, and the United States to travel in their sectors. In 1948 to 1949, the Berlin Airlift took place led by the United States. This event was crucial because it exposed the deep theoretical differences separating East and West. Not only did it sustain the people of West Berlin during a desperate period, but it also gave a tremendous boost to U.S. prestige in Western and Central Europe during the Cold War. The popularity of the United States soared, particularly among Germans, doing a great deal to overcome lingering hostility from the war.
The outcome of the Berlin Blockade had a lasting impact on Europe, leading to the end of the Second World War. Germany was divided between the 4 Allied powers: France, the United Kingdom, the US, and the Soviet Union. Its capital, Berlin, suffered the same fate, with the added complication that West Berlin became an area with the Soviet zone. It also shaped democracy and freedom.
The Berlin Blockade was the first serious crisis of the Cold War. The Western Allies began moving their zones into a single West Germany state. The Soviet Union had been invaded twice by Germany, so they were worried that they would not invade again.
Following these actions by the West, the Soviets created their own currency for East Germany. They also imposed a blockade on the west side. They cut off all the land and railroads into the west sectors. When the Soviets closed all railroad traffic, leaving 2.5 million people reliant on reserves, stocks, and airlifting replacements.
The Soviet authorities thought their plan was working, but the Western Allies responded right away by mounting Operation Airlift. 10 times C-54s began supplying 5,000 tons of supplies a day. This led the blockade to be ineffective and it ended up backfiring on the Soviets. It provoked fears of wars in the West, and instead of preventing establishments in West Germany, it increased the Allied plans they set up.
It also accelerated their creation of the American Western Europe Military Alliance, and Stalin had a choice to lift up the blockade. The political events during the Berlin Airlift, the spring 1949 proved successful. The Western Allies showed that they could support the operation indefinitely. At the same time, the Allied counter-blockade on eastern Germany was causing severe shortage, which Moscow feared might lead to political unrest.
The Soviet Union gave in and lifted the blockade on May 11, 1949. Although the airlift itself never ends until September 30, just in case the Soviet Union changes their mind, 2 million Berliners were spread between 4 different zones of occupation. Allied bombing had reduced the city to rubble, shelter, and warmth were scarce. The black market dominated the city's economic life, and starvation loomed.
Tyra, how did the Berlin blockade and airlift reflect the broader ideological conflict between capitalism and communism during the Cold War? And in what ways did this event shape the future of the US-Soviet relations?
The incident solidified the line between East and West in Europe. It was one of the few places on earth that US and Soviet armed forces stood face to face. It also transformed Berlin once it waived Prussian militarism and Nazism into a symbol of democracy and freedom in the fight against communism. Glennis, how did the Western power respond to the Berlin blockade?
The United States and United Kingdom responded by airlifting food and fuel to Berlin from Allied air bases in Western Germany. The crisis ended on May 12, 1949, when Soviet forces lifted the blockade on land access to Western Berlin. The crisis was a result of competing occupation policies and rising tensions between Western powers and the Soviet Union. After the end of the Second World War, the future of post-war Germany was plagued in the divisions between Allied powers.
To recap, the Berlin blockade was a turning point because it served to highlight the competing political and economic visions for post-war Europe. The Berlin crisis of 1948 and 1949 solidified the division of Europe. Shortly before the end of the blockade, the Western Allies created the North Atlantic Treaty Organization known as NATO.
2 weeks after the end of the blockade, the state of West Germany was established, soon followed by the creation of East Germany. The Western Allies had responded with a massive airlift to come to West Berlin in aid, supporting each other and showing where their commitments lay.
Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to Jack Badkey for more deep dives into history. Feel free to share your thoughts with us. Until next time, keep exploring the past to understand the present.